Let the record reflect that all members of the board are here, along with the village administrator, clerk and treasurer, recording secretary, and the village engineer, and the chair of the plan commission, and the village attorney, who I know is here. Okay. Because I saw him. Okay. All right.
And here he comes.
And here he comes. In fact, I'm going to wait 2 seconds. For those of you may have noticed that on the village attorney, we go through them so quickly that we don't bother to put names on them. Okay. The gentleman, this is Tom Schumacher, who's with Bakke Norman Law Firm, and it's the firm that represents the village, and so that's why there are periodic changes in the actual attorney. But I just wanted to introduce Tom. I know I did last month, but just in case anyone didn't recognize the face, it's Tom Schumacher. Okay. All right, comments from the floor. This is a section where we allow residents to bring up issues. Oh, wait. I should do number 2. Review and approve the minutes from the regular board meeting of July 6th. Thank you, George. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the regular Board of Trustees meeting of July 6, 2006.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any corrections? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, now, comments from the floor? Comments from the floor is that section where we allow residents to bring up issues which are not on the agenda, topics which would otherwise not be discussed tonight. Okay, none? Tony, you didn't want to talk about Pepperfest or what you're going to be doing? What you're going to be doing over Christmas or something?
All under control, guys. When the peppers are hot.
They are. All right.
They always are.
Okay. Jim, how about you? Status of the lawn mowing business or anything? No? Okay. All right. What, rain is good. Rain is good. All right. Muds and Suds, next issue. We have, let's see, is that in the minutes?
There's an issue statement.
Yes.
Right
Nope, that isn't it.
behind
Before that.
the blank tab. Keep going. There.
Okay.
Make a motion.
Sure. Go ahead.
I move to approve Paul Rhodey as the registered agent for Muds and Suds located at 726 6th Street North.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Comments, questions, discussion? None? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Please note that Mark Zapp abstained. So the motion was carried 6-0. Okay. Let's see, Cabin Fever, Class B fermented malt beverage, and a Class B liquor license, as well as cigarette and amusement permit. I believe within your documents there are suggested motions. Chair would entertain a motion regarding the license applications for
I move to approve the Class B retail license for the sale of fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquor to the Cabin NH Inc., doing business as Cabin Fever, located at 501 6th Street North, with Shane A. Benoit of 219 3rd Street, Hudson, Wisconsin, as the agent for this license for the period of August 2nd, 2006 through June 30th of 2007.
Before we get into any discussion, are you picking up feedback?
No.
Okay, all right. All right. Comments or questions regarding the motion or the issue? Okay, if not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, the cabin fever request for a cigarette license. Chair would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the over-the-counter cigarette sales license for Shane Benoit of the Cabin NH Inc., DBA Cabin Fever, located at 501 6th Street North for the period of August 2nd, 2006 through June 30th, 2007.
I'll second.
Comments or questions? Not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion's carried.
I'll move to approve the coin-operated amusements permits for Shane Benoit of the Cabin NH Inc., DBA Cabin Fever, located at 501 6th Street North for the period of August 2nd, 2006 through June 30th, 2007.
I'll second.
Comments or questions on the motion or the issue?
Just a comment that each one of these has been scrutinized very carefully by our police department, and that it was the chief's recommendation that we do certify all certify these, so.
Good point. Okay. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Pepperfest temporary Class B fermented malt beverage.
I move to approve the Hudson Pepper Festival Inc. temporary Class B picnic license for serving fermented malt beverages for a period starting on August 17, 2006 through August 21, 2006, with the contingency that there will be an adequate amount of licensed operators to supervise their staff at all times, as recommended by the village administrator.
Okay.
Second.
Any comments or questions regarding the motion or the issue? Okay, if not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. All right. I don't think I've overlooked anything. Moving on to the Plan Commission. Chair update. Floor is all yours, Errol.
Errol Score, 67 Wellhead Road. Currently chair of the Plan Commission with Hudson. We had a fairly easy session July 19th, meaning that it wasn't, the agenda wasn't very complicated, and it allowed us for the first time to really zero in on a couple of key chapters of the Comprehensive Growth Plan, which we did without having to have a special session for those review of those chapters. So the entire course of the meeting, which lasted until 9:03, we did discuss these two chapters, the chapters of community character and land use. The discussions really are captured very nicely in your minutes, so I won't go into a lot of detail. In fact, I'm not going into any detail at all, and the fact that it was very productive, brought out some questions, obviously, some concerns. I'll just wrap it up by saying that we continue to progress with the Comprehensive Growth Plan process, looking at November, December timeframe for a final draft to you folks for your perusal and review, and hopefully then readying us then for a question and answer session, us meaning the Plan Commission with you. If you have any questions or comments on the minutes of the meeting or what we went through during the meeting of July 19th. We had no public hearings of any sort on the agenda. It was strictly open, the way it worked out for the Plan Commission review, the Comprehensive Growth Plan, or portions thereof.
Just kind of following up on your observation in terms of the kinds of topics that you were involved in discussing at the July 19th meeting. And also kind of picking up on a suggestion that I had made several months ago, that at some point in time, it would, before the plan commission gets to trying to finish the comprehensive plan, I think it had been suggested that the plan commission and the board of trustees get together, probably at a separate meeting, just give the opportunity for the plan commission to bring the board of trustees completely up to speed, as well as to look at any overlapping or potentially, I won't say conflicting, but just to make sure we don't end up at cross purposes inadvertently. So it would seem to me that the plan commission and the board should be getting together, fairly soon, like I'd say within, the next 30 days. And just given the comment that Gloria had made at the Finance Committee meeting, which is, although it's hard to believe, we're, starting to, do the groundwork for the 2007 budget. I'm not sure if there will be correlation there or not, but there could well be. And so it would certainly make sense to get that conversation going as soon as possible.
Especially with the land use issue,
Mm-hmm.
land use concern,
Absolutely.
all the things that may be on the table now and by then.
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea
Okay.
that we ought to meet, have an update.
Good.
So do we leave that up to
Could we create, even-
Donna to set up that meeting?
Could we even create some kind of a tentative date tonight? I mean, if we were to look at August, we'd have the 21st, it looks like the 21st, 22nd, 28th, and 30th would be,
Starting the 26th, I'll be gone for about 6 weeks, so I'd like to participate, so if we could have it before the 26th.
well, why don't I throw out either August 21, and if that doesn't work for everybody, the 22nd? If we pick the 21st, how does that work? Just as a tentative work. Obviously, we'll have to go back and check with the Plan Commission members to make sure
Sure.
we get an adequate representation from that group as well. Okay?
Good, so we tentatively plan for the 21st?
Yes, 21st at,
Monday.
Monday the 21st at 7? You want to start earlier?
Larry, could I suggest the 22nd instead? I would possibly be able to make that.
Okay,
I definitely won't make the 21st.
all right. How's the 22nd? How's that?
Tuesday, the 22nd of August, 7 o'clock?
I'm just suggesting right now,
Yeah,
is 7 o'clock
right.
okay?
Will you be contacting or talking with Donna
Yes.
to see if that's, so she can communicate that with the Plan Commission?
Okay,
Okay, good, thank you.
good. Okay.
I'm going to talk to the next issue.
We have the information that came from the June Plan Commission meeting, where they dealt with the issue of a rezoning request, specifically Lot 105 of Summers Landing Streets. They conducted the meeting. I want to wait for a second. I have competing noise. They held a public hearing and voted to not approve the request for Lot 105, Summers Landing, 6th edition. If I recall, the primary rationale was that at this point in time, the Plan Commission is in the process of completing the comprehensive plan, which will deal with the issue of land use. So they felt it was premature to be dealing with this or any related type issues until the comprehensive plan was done. There were some issues associated with the particular request, not that it was outrageous or ridiculous or anything like that. It certainly was not a request for a nuclear waste dump or something like that. It was not an inappropriate request at all. But at least at this time, they felt that it would be premature, given the issue of the comprehensive plan not being completed, which would mean the land use, as well as there were some legitimate questions associated with some of the infrastructure and just operating aspects of having a lot of traffic in that area. So consequently, it is the recommendation of the Plan Commission to reject the application for an ordinance change. Now, if you look at the ordinance that you're being asked, okay, the ordinance is the one that is drafted by the applicant, okay? And the ordinance request is written in the affirmative, okay? Because as an applicant, you would want the board to approve this ordinance change, okay? So, in terms of if you wanted to vote for the applicant request, then you'd vote yes, okay? If you wanted to agree with the Plan Commission, the vote would be no, okay? One other option would also be to table the issue, okay? I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but at least that is an option, or send it back to the Plan Commission would be an option as well, all right? So, but we do have an issue in front of us which we need to deal with. The reason we need to deal with it is because the request for an ordinance change is what is referred to as a legislative decision, and a legislative decision cannot be finalized by the Plan Commission. It has to be finalized by the board. Okay? So that's why we're dealing with it. Okay? So just for the purposes of discussion, let's see. I would make a motion to concur with the Plan Commission recommendation to, where am I?
Vote no.
There it is. Just got to find my page here. Make a motion that the board concur with the Plan Commission recommendation not to approve ordinance number 04-2006, an ordinance request soliciting a rezoning.
Mr. President?
Not yet. Okay. Is there a second to the motion? Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Okay.
Would it be appropriate to include in the motion the words, or maybe it's implied here, and the village is not done with its long-range comprehensive plan yet. And so can we deny this until, I'm not sure I heard that in your motion, until the comprehensive plan has been completed? Is that appropriate?
I think that would be up to the Plan Commission did not include that as a condition.
Okay. I'm just concerned that if we were to say no, the wording of your motion, Kathy, could you read that back to us? This is a very important topic. I want to make sure we understand it very well.
Okay, the motion was that the board confer with the Plan Commission recommendation not to approve ordinance numbers 04-2006 and ordinance request soliciting a rezoning.
Clarification.
Wasn't that concur?
Concur, yeah.
Because it's an affirmative motion to follow the recommendation, which is to deny.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. Okay.
And does the owner of the property have, yes, we did.
Yeah.
Can the owner of the property come back and resubmit this after the Plan Commission has concluded their work? In other words, by saying no today, that does not mean no forever. Is that correct?
As I understand it, and Tom, you correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand it, to the extent that a request like this is, if you go through the Plan Commission, they do their public hearing, they make their recommendation. In this case, it's not to approve. The board then either accepts that recommendation, does the reverse and approves the request, or sends it back, one of those three. Okay. To the extent that it's denied here, then the appeal goes back to the Plan Commission. Am I correct?
Right, I think once they've gone through the process to get to here, you've got a recommendation from the Planning Commission. You can do with that as you see fit. In the ordinance itself, it talks about that the Planning Commission, my glasses, denied for reasons that there's concern that the plan wasn't thorough enough and the village is not done with its long-range comprehensive plan. So it seems to me at some point in the future, potentially, if this motion passes, then they could come back because they may have a more thorough plan, and the village may have completed their comprehensive plan, at which point it would be appropriate to revisit it.
Who had the second on the motion? Joe? Okay.
The reason I'm raising these is simply because we are trying to encourage some businesses to establish here. And I don't want to shut the door on the possibility that we could have some businesses here, which could generate, of course, some revenue and a tax base.
Sure.
I also do recognize, Darrell, that the Plan Commission isn't finished yet. And so I don't want to shut the door on the possibility of some land which looks like it would be in an ideal location for some businesses in the future.
Well, I don't think this forecloses. You can do an appeal back.
Yeah.
Second, you can always modify the proposal, bring it back as an entirely new proposal. Okay. Could be a radically different proposal. Okay. But at least at this point in time, the one thing we got to keep in mind, that issue was a public hearing on the matter, which meant residents were informed, et cetera, whereas this is not a public hearing. Okay. So consequently, we have to be very, very limited in terms of in terms of discussing the issue as a board, since it is not a public hearing. We can certainly solicit information from anyone we feel is appropriate, whether it's the developer, whether it's from Darrell as a representative of the Plan Commission, or from each other. Okay, we can do that. But we can't get into a full-blown, let's open it up to the floor discussion, because that would be totally inappropriate, because the other, the residents who might be potentially impacted by a public hearing had not been given notice. Okay. So therefore, technically, this issue's got to stay within the board.
If we turn down the Planning Commission's recommendation, does that de facto approve the ordinance change, or just goes back to the drawing board scenario?
If we said yes?
Yes.
Okay, so if we went counter to the Planning
Yeah.
Commission, as I understand it, that would, what they said no to was this specific request, ordinance number 04-206. So therefore, if we said, no, we're not going to accept the Plan Commission, then by default, we would accept this?
Yeah, if your motion that's on the table fails, then somebody else could make another motion.
Okay.
Which would, could be a motion to approve this ordinance as drafted. That's potential.
Or to readdress it. What I'm getting at is if we voted to just not go with the Planning Commission's recommendation, does it leave it in limbo, so to speak, and automatically can get readdressed without?
No, I don't think it leaves it in limbo. I think if you don't follow the Planning Commission's recommendation, the process has been followed. They've had their public hearing. They've been to the Planning Commission. Now it's in front of this body, the council, or the board. And now you either affirmatively adopt the ordinance or you don't. And if the motion, as I understand it on the table, is that a motion to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission, which would be to deny.
Yes.
Now, that's what's on the floor, and once that vote is taken, depending on what happens, there may somebody else could make another motion, depending on where we're at. If that motion fails, then somebody could make a motion to pass this ordinance, which would in fact grant the rezoning, which would be counter to what the recommendation is of the Planning Commission.
But it would remain in limbo if nobody made that second motion.
No, if this first motion is successful and is affirmed.
No, if it fails.
Okay, if this one
If
fails.
the motion that Larry made fails.
Yes, okay.
And nobody made another motion, then it is in a state of limbo, isn't it?
It is in a state of limbo, yes.
Then I could go to, what I'm getting at is I'm going to probably vote to yes, simply as a sign of encouragement for who's ever interested in getting some development up here to come back. What I'm concerned about is if we all vote no, what that sounds like and the message that sends. It's not even so much that particular request, which may need to be fine-tuned, and there may be some things to change on there. I just, for us to go no, no, no around the board, I don't like the sound of it. So I'm going to vote yes myself.
But I think we need to be sure everybody knows what they're voting, because the motion is to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and that motion was to deny the rezoning. So the vote that's going around, if you are in support of that motion, is going to be a yes vote, I believe,
Yes.
which would be, the result would be no, but the votes would all be yes.
It's
Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah.
Mark, you need to vote no if you want to do what you want to do.
Yes,
Oh, I gotta
that's
vote
correct.
no, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, I would take,
Right.
I would take a different perspective, okay, in terms of the yes/no vote. I couldn't agree with you more that we need to do, you know, as much as we can to try and solicit new business coming into the village. Couldn't agree more. This particular request at this point in time, and given its exact specifications as presented at the June meeting, are not what we want to approve. Doesn't mean the person couldn't tweak it, bend it a little bit, come right back to the Planning Commission, say, got a slightly different proposal. Planning Commission says, that looks good, we recommend that, we're right back here. I don't see this as any different than, you know, the issue that Hudson's arguing with. You know, they've got that land that used to be the old hospital, and they're trying to decide, you know, how best to use it. And so they've had 5 or 6 different suggestions come forward. So far, they've turned them all down. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that either the individual or the developer, you know, is dead in the water.
We don't get too many tickles up here, though.
You don't understand that.
I'd like to throw something else in, and this is pleading complete and total ignorance of the codes that we use, C2, C3. For all I know, there's a C1, a C4, and a C5. As far as I'm concerned, that's a designation used for Corvettes. Now then, what I'm getting at is this to me is jargon. No one has explained to me the difference between a C2 and a C3. I know it has to do with the type of commercial development that goes on it, but I don't know the difference between those. And so I find that any vote that I would have would be based solely and completely upon a recommendation from the Plan Commission. Somehow I don't think I'm the only one who is confused and ignorant of the differences between C1, 2, 3, and 4.
Harold, could you provide a little more information to the board?
C2, as been defined to us, is the zoning alphanumeric for property that will be used for commercial use, but on a professional, more of a professional type basis. An example would be an attorney, a doctor, dentist, those types of land uses.
Office buildings.
Pardon, banks, yes. C3, public buildings for professional services, let's say, and/or public services, other public services. C3 is definitely moves right into commercialization, retail, including retail businesses. And that's the key difference. The citizens who were here on the 21st of June, and there was a complete room, standing room only, were very concerned about the fact, well, first of all, let me say, most of them flat out said that, hey, when we bought the property, we knew it was zone C2. And, you know, if something comes along that's C2, we may not like it, our greenery may be gone, but we know that's what we got ourselves lined up for when we bought the property. C3 is a different story for them. C3, they see different things. They see considerable traffic pattern changes, movement in and out. They see safety problems of on and off Highway 35 as some of the reasons. I know I'm answering or giving you a little more information than what your question was. But what we thought as a plan commission, after much discussion, we really believe that Delta had done an excellent job of putting together a plan for that particular property. We believe that it's important that someone like a Delta come in and develop that property for the village. If the village is going to continue to have these kinds of retail opportunities and services available, which incidentally was highlighted quite significantly in the survey relating to the comprehensive growth plan. So it wasn't a matter of whether or not the Plan Commission wasn't a matter of the members saying, we think the approach is way off base. It was more of a matter of, we've heard the residents, they were here in mass. There weren't a lot of other people here, excuse me, at the meeting that said, hey, no, we think this is a great idea and let's go with it, which is quite common in these kinds of meetings. But yet, on the other hand, we didn't want to shut it out either. We just thought it was premature, based on where we are right now with the plan, the comprehensive growth plan, to make a recommendation to the village board saying, yeah, go ahead, let's rezone this and let's get Delta moving on what they want to do. We just wanted to buy some more time, and the time we're talking about is probably 3 to 4 months. That answer your question?
Yes, Darrell,
Okay.
you answered another question I had too.
Okay.
Your timeline.
And which is tied to
Yeah.
finishing of the plan and getting the draft to you people.
Okay. Anyone have any questions they'd like to offer or ask of the developer?
Hey,
If
Darrell?
I can give a quick presentation, I'd love to.
I can't really allow you to do that because I can't allow the opposing side to do the same thing. Because I didn't list it
I guess I felt
as.
from the standpoint that we did the application, that the applicant would have the ability to present.
You
And you
did,
did that at the Plan Commission?
at the Plan Commission. And you had a public
And
hearing.
when I deal with the council at the city of Hudson, even if it's a positive or a negative planning commission statement, the presenter still gets to make the statement.
Do you have any new information?
Yes, I do, sir.
Now, if you have new information which was not presented at the Plan Commission, that information could be submitted tonight.
If I may.
You may submit that new information.
My name is Dean Hanson. I'm with Hanson Design and Construction, the individual interested in developing this lot over here. And since this process has started, I've been approached by Tom Dickman, who is with, used to be with County Market as the manager, correct, at one time? Okay. And now he's with Nash Finch, the buyer. And he and his wife have approached us. They need 25,000 square feet to put a grocery store. They'd like to put it in this location, and they like the presentation that we've done for this product. So if you have any questions of Mr. Dickman, he is here tonight and would be happy to tell you their plans toward a grocery store.
I think those were pretty much explained at the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you.
So that would be redundant.
Does anybody want this read? Does anybody want the ordinance read?
Tom was just asking, would anybody, you find it valuable to actually read the definition of the ordinance, C2 versus C3? I think Darrell's description of it was quite accurate.
And I think it was in last month's meeting, Plan Commission minutes. Unfortunately, I probably should have recopied them for this meeting also.
I have a lot of perspectives on this. One is, I certainly want to see the village utilize the space we can to maximize the tax base. And I would love nothing better than to vote on something like that at an appropriate time. The flip side of that is we have a Plan Commission who spent fairly long amount of time going through this and hearing presentations. Mr. Hanson made a presentation. And they went through that analysis as well as, and developed their recommendations. And I don't like to just arbitrarily, throw out a Plan Commission recommendation unless I've got some pretty substantive reasons as to why that should be done. There were also a fair number of people who spoke against it now. Maybe it's a matter of timing, okay? Or maybe it's the nature of the particular request. What's that?
One of the groups speaking against it was a group from Starwood, which aren't even residents of North Hudson.
That's true. But there were, a lot of people from North Hudson who were there, okay? But in terms of reviewing the information from that, I mean, I didn't come up with any information so far that would give me reason to disagree with the Plan Commission's recommendation, given what it is. I also recognize this is not going to be the end of what we're going to do with that chunk of land. Somebody's going to develop it, at least I hope they are. And it sounds like within 3 to 4 months, we'll have a pretty good, clear definition as to exactly how it can be developed. Now, right now, it's a C2. They're requesting a C3. Plan Commission says, no, we're not going to go C3 yet. That's really all they're saying.
What will change to make it C3 in the Planning Commission comprehensive plan? I fail to see where the comprehensive plan is going to have a large impact on their city because there's not a lot of land to deal with at all.
There isn't, but the comprehensive plan process has to deal with all of the zoning that exists within the village, okay? Has to deal with that. So even though there isn't an awful lot of land left, to the extent that the Planning Commission said, we should get more lax, we should broaden the capabilities of developers or others to do something with this land, so let's move this chunk of land to C3. So they could come to that conclusion. And they're in that discussion right now. And right now, I think, as I interpret it, they're just saying, I just don't want to make an ad hoc decision on that particular parcel right now, given that we're just about to have that discussion.
Daryl, you were looking at all the different areas, correct, on where the businesses C1, C2, C3, multifamilies, so that we don't run into spot zoning and
What really is on the board,
consistency.
and no pun intended, this board will see that and hear that on the 22nd when we meet, is wrestling with where should the Civic Center be? Should it continue to be here, right where it is, and should the village build on here? Or should the Civic Center be someplace else? Also, where should if the village is going to have a village center, and that's one of the very critical issues that we must go through in a comprehensive plan, growth plan, is looking at a village like this and saying, if it doesn't have a defined village center today, should there be one in the future? And we're talking, this plan's supposed to cover 10 years minimum. So if that's the case, let's not be hasty in terms of defining, when you look at the areas of the village where we have C2 and C3 available today, let's just take some more time and let's just see if by approaching this right in a common sense way, that we do end up with a civic center in the right place, and or the commercial the commercial center, the marketing center, as a village center in the right place also. So for instance, had we gone ahead and made the recommendation to you folks on the request at the time on June 21st, and you had agreed with it, we ended up there automatically then, or we end up there with this company ready to go and build in a very, I think, well thought out plan for a C3 commercial environment. Yet on the other hand, is that a piece of the puzzle then that sits out there by its own when we finally, 3 months from now, come in with the final recommendation to you? It just seemed like that we were so close that why rush into that?
Okay. Anyone have any other questions you want to ask Daryl? What's that?
I said I know the Planning Commission's charged with the comprehensive plan, but I can't help but think of the fact that this building hasn't been touched in 40 years. It took literally 15 years of haggling and scraping to get a village shop. So when we start talking about a village center and comprehensive plan, I don't see it ever happening. I just don't see it ever coming together. So decisions based on that sort of fantasy seem inappropriate to me.
I'm not so sure that I would characterize the work that the Plan Commission has done as fantasy. Okay? Now, are they at least suggesting that this is an alternative that we collectively explore to see whether or not we want to incorporate it in the planning process? I mean, that is what, as far as I'm concerned, they're doing. And they're trying
Yes.
not to preclude
Now,
the opportunity to have
the
that
only thing that
discussion.
I find a little bit that concerns me is holding off, basing current decisions on an outcome of a plan that's going to be presented in a couple months that is just a plan, and we all know that very few comprehensive plans have ever been followed around here. So and again, I don't know, I know we have to go through it, but I feel it concerns me that we're basing a current decision on what the comprehensive plan is going to say. I haven't seen one that's been followed or...
Well, I think all of the decisions that have been, they may not have all been totally consistent with the plan, but they certainly have been done
But I mean, look at
by
the track
looking at the
record.
plan.
I mean, there was a plan I tried to get, Joe sat on that for a year, tried to get a village center up somewhere else, where'd that go in a year? I don't see the climate change too much myself.
Well, we have an issue in front, which is to deal with the applicant request and more specifically the Plan Commission's recommendation. So, are there any other questions people would have of either Mr. Hanson or Darrell or the village attorney on the matter?
What if you tabled it till after this planning commission?
We're obligated to act on the motion, on the Plan Commission recommendation.
Was that, what you just said, did you just tell Mark we can't table it?
Nope.
Table's not a proper term anyway.
But the motion which is on the table is to concur with the Plan Commission, okay?
That is
So
correct.
again, going back to what Tom had said, you got to deal with the motion that's on the table in the second. Then, if that goes down, if you say, no, we don't go along with the motion, then the whole matter is back on the table. Then you have to have some other kind of motion.
Can I make a suggestion? And I know that you have your motion on the table. It's just that we have a motion on the table that people are going to vote, and then the result's going to be, if you vote in the affirmative, that results in the denial, which sometimes what's on the agenda is this ordinance for rezoning. And it seems to me that it would be clear and leave less gray matter when we get done if this motion is in the, this ordinance is on the agenda, that somebody make a motion to approve the ordinance. It's an affirmative, and then you just simply have that vote, and if it passes, the ordinance passes, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, and if it does, then you know where you're at, you're done, and if it hasn't passed, they go back. If it has passed, they go forward. And then your vote, yes or no, coincides with the result, yes or no.
And if they were to appeal, it would be appealed back to the Plan Commission and not to the board.
Right, and I don't think there's really an appeal I mean, they could appeal to the circuit court to say that, well, this was an arbitrary action. I don't think that that's really what's an issue here. I think that would be the process. It goes the appeal process that way. I think that if it's turned down, they simply retool and maybe address those concerns that were raised in the planning commission at the planning commission level as far as why they didn't recommend it, and they go back and come back again. But I'm always a little concerned when you're voting one way and the result turns out the other. I think it'd be if you're willing to do that, is that you withdraw yours and somebody, and maybe nobody will make that motion, but somebody would make a motion in a second to simply pass the ordinance, which is here, knowing that the recommendation.
And what you're suggesting is a semantic change. I understand, because what you're really saying is, the issue in front of us is, do we want to approve ordinance number 04-206?
That's right.
Okay. Rather than say, the issue is not, do we concur with the plan commission? Yes, that's a part of the discussion,
Right.
it's part of our decision-making. Okay. Now, you know, as far as the record is concerned, I don't have any trouble withdrawing my motion and restating the motion as you have suggested it.
Okay.
Okay. Which is to say that I make a motion that the board approve ordinance number 04-2006. Okay. Now, I don't know if the person who made the second would be willing to withdraw and concur with that. We haven't changed anything of substance, we've changed the language in the motion, but I think we all understand what we're voting on. It's either you agree to this, to grant them a C3, or we don't. I've got some bugs in
I
here.
thought we had, wasn't there some other part of that motion too, besides just that ordinance? Or was it?
No, I mean, that is the issue. I mean, do we want to change that lot from a C?
It
Could
was
you
the
reread
ordinance
the
request.
original motion?
Yeah, that the board concur with the plan commission to recommend not to approve the ordinance number 04-2006 and ordinance request soliciting a rezoning. So there were two.
No, it's an ordinance. It's not an and.
Oh, and.
It's not an and. It's an ordinance requesting a rezoning.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
It's not an
I was
upper.
thinking there were two parts of it,
No.
okay.
No,
Okay.
no.
I'll second it, just so we can move on.
Okay. It's not, does everybody understand the motion on the table? Okay.
Better say it again.
I make a motion that the Board of Trustees approve ordinance number 04-206. Joe has seconded that motion. Okay, so the motion is on the table and has a second. So if you vote, yes, I agree with your motion, Larson, then that chunk of land up there moves from a C2 to a C3, which is what the Plan Commission said, no, we don't want to do that. Okay. So, in terms of, if you want to change that, if you want to go along with the current request in the applicant, then with respect to the motion, you vote yes. If you say, no, I don't want to do that, I want to wait and go along with the Plan Commission, take a look, and do some time, then you vote no. Okay? You can't vote to table. That would be second. Okay, that's another motion entirely.
A yes vote approves the
Change.
rezoning change?
Yes.
That seems like a big jump from what we were
That is the issue.
discussing.
No, that's the issue.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, that's
I
the
know,
issue.
but
Yeah, the request from the applicant is first, I want to rezone this chunk of land, and here's what I'm going to do with it, boom, 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 and they develop their plans.
So we've got to the meat of the issue, and now
Pardon?
we're not voting kind of underhandedly to, maybe talk about it later. We're actually voting yes or no.
Well, because that's the request that was presented to the Plan Commission. Okay? And the actual building is actually a secondary issue. Okay?
In effect, by voting yes on this motion, looks like the village center is, it would appear that drawing is, it's off to my left, would become a reality.
I don't know about that.
I don't agree, I wouldn't agree with that at all.
A lot of other conditions.
Okay. And I'm not so sure that this
Somebody
group,
else maybe will come up with
I have no idea what this group and the Plan Commission are going to come up with when they finally get together and
You
start
gotta
talking
get a
about it.
conditional use permit that might deny whatever business that is applying for that. If it's a 2 to 4 a.m. thing, chances are you might not get a conditional use permit.
Yeah.
So this is strictly a zoning change. It doesn't necessarily mean anything in particular is going in there.
I just wanted that on the table so everybody understood that.
Larry, did we, at the last meeting that I was not able to attend, hear any, has the board itself heard any commentary from the neighbors or anyone with interest in this? It's only been
No,
heard
because
by the
that's-
planning commission.
Plan Commission, and that's why they have the public hearings. Okay, now, we can do public hearings, we could have done a public hearing tonight, that's our option. But given the fact that we didn't deal with it last month, and, very honestly, I didn't think it had to be on the agenda last month, I was wrong, I was given incorrect information. So we put it on the agenda. Okay, there was no request for a public hearing, so therefore I didn't do a public hearing tonight on the issue.
But it is an agenda item duly posted.
But it is an agenda item for tonight, duly posted, yes, okay. Did that answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm still trying to decide, though. I don't think that I could vote to make a change like that at this point, knowing what I know, which is nothing, very little, about the issue. Although I'm very possibly in favor of it with some stipulations.
Could well be. I mean, there is two issues here. I mean, just keep in mind, all we're dealing with is do we want to change that chunk of land from a C2 to a C3. That's the only issue we're dealing with tonight. The specific request that was associated with that, may actually have a lot of positives to it. It may have some negatives, but it may have, some overriding positives too. Okay. But the Plan Commission, at least at this point in time, has said, no, we don't recommend that at this time. Okay.
Not to particularly muddy the waters anymore, but
Well, then
probably
don't.
will. I'm just not familiar enough with the property. Is the surrounding property all C2 such that this is a C3? There is some adjacent C3.
Residential.
No,
That's right. Okay, so this will be,
It's an island commercial,
Well, right across the street though,
well, across the street. across
Is
the highway.
C2.
is the, and isn't there a restaurant?
Yeah.
Is-
Mama Maria's, that's C3 in the corner.
Right.
The piece of land is
So I
right
mean,
on
it's
Highway
kind of
35.
I thought it's over here. That was my
Yeah.
understanding.
So there's like a U-shaped section of residential right behind it.
Mhm. Okay.
And but then zoning it for C3, you could do a C2 project in there, or you can always build down.
So this is actually C2, so it is commercial already, so it's
Yes.
just a
Yeah.
different category of commercial.
Yeah.
Fine, okay, thanks.
Okay.
It's on the highway.
All right.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a spot zoning thing, since it's already commercial, that's not really an issue. Okay.
Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Ready.
Okay. Okay, now, then, again, I'll restate the motion. The motion is to approve the ordinance request. Okay? If you vote yes, then the ordinance, then that chunk of land goes from C2 to C3. If you vote no, then that land just stays as a C2. Okay? And anyone that wants to can come back with another recommendation as to how they want to develop it as a C2. Okay? Or come back as another request for a C3. Okay? So if you want to change it, vote yes. Okay? If you want to leave it as is, vote no. Got that? Okay. I've seen inadvertent votes happen on this. It's the only reason I'm being redundant. Okay? We'll do a roll call vote. Colleen?
No.
Joe? George?
No.
Jerry?
No.
Sandra?
No.
Mark?
Yes.
Larry? No. Okay? The ordinance request is turned down on a vote of 6-1. Great. And my guess is this will not be the last time we'll deal with that issue.
I would hope not.
And I would hope not, too. Final condition use permit approval for Muds and Suds. We have a recommendation from the Plan Commission, which now, as I understand it, completes the original Muds and Suds conditional permit use application. Is that correct? Is that a correct statement, Gloria?
Yes, and I'd like Kevin to kind of comment on that side of it. Sorry, you caught me daydreaming.
Mr. Chairman, President, am I free to go?
Well, it depends.
Consideration.
Have I been dismissed?
No. No, you have to stay at least 10. You'll have to, because we're still under Plan Commission.
Oh, I'm
Okay. Now, you'll have to stay till 10, even if we get done at 9. Okay. Other than that,
Just move that down to the bottom. Go, Kevin, you got
We'll make it short and sweet. Basically, when we went through the review process as part of the conditional use permit, there was a memorandum that was drafted by our particular office, Cedar Corporation, and there was 8 items that were noted that needed to be addressed. And we've been working with Mark Zappa here for the last week, and he has resubmitted a revised drawing. All the particular items have been addressed. There is only one item that still sits out there, and that would be in regards to the ingress and egress access off of North End Road. Where it's proposed now, it looks like it encroaches into the parcel to the east, and with that document, then everything on this memorandum would be checked off. So that's the only thing that's outstanding to date.
So why would we approve anyone's request, setting aside that it's marked, why would we approve anyone's request if all of the terms and conditions have not been met?
You could conditionally approve it contingent on this particular document being turned in to the village prior to a building permit actually being granted or occupancy.
Okay, so this is not unlike what the Plan Commission did, which is, okay, we'll approve this conditional use permit or recommend it based on these conditions.
Yes.
And there were a total of 8
Yes.
conditions.
8 particular
7 have been
items.
satisfied.
Yes.
1 remains.
Yes.
So what we're doing, would be doing tonight is approving the final on the condition that number 8 also gets satisfied.
Correct. Prior to
prior to
clarified before a building permit is issued.
building permit or occupancy.
We have to record an easement on our own property. Between the lot he's referring to the east is our own, but it's just down the line, make sure there's an easement. So it's just a matter of getting that recorded, which is a legal document. It's going to take a little while because we're going to do some other things at the same time. So once that's recorded, Cedar Corp sees it, it's an official piece and it's done.
From your perspective, Kevin,
Yes.
Mark, you can concur as well or not, is what we're dealing with in terms of the one remaining outstanding issue, is it like an administrative nit?
It's just, I guess, it's protection for Mark, if that particular part, I know it's family owned, the parcel to the east. It's just to protect if, for some reason.
Let me ask the question this way.
Sure.
What is the condition that's not being satisfied?
It's just the ingress, egress.
It's an easement. Recorded an easement on our own property. We're putting a driveway right down a property line.
Okay, so it's not a question of are you going to have an ingress, egress, or
No.
egress? It's simply have you got it
And it doesn't
recorded?
affect anybody else. It doesn't affect the village. It's primarily, as he said, to protect me from my brother or vice versa.
Well, I can understand that. Okay, that's for sure. Okay.
You know,
All right, so it is not, so it is, so it is not a material or construction-related type
No.
of condition.
The
It is
lab-
simply that he has to complete a legal document and get it recorded at the county.
right. It's just, if that particular parcel was to be sold in the future, it just,
It needs to be a part of the record.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has legal right to use that.
I just need to
driveway.
make sure I understand when I'm
No.
giving what appears to be like advance approval. What are you really approving? And the answer is, in this case, not
If I
much.
may say, that is more of an administrative thing. Now, the other item he was waiting for, the site grading and erosion control plan, which you just called a plan, that is instrumental to construction.
Yes.
He has to see that. Now, if you did, that's a little more significant. This is just a documentation deal.
And
Well,
that
we're-
is
very
what
simple.
has been completed.
It's the site grading plan and
Yeah.
erosion control, yes, yep. I have seen a copy and I do approve.
Well, I mean, obviously, the Plan Commission has already approved the condition, has given, in essence, tentative approval of the conditional use permit for Muds and Suds, subject to 8 conditions. 7 have already been satisfied to your satisfaction. The one that remains is an administrative one, which is non-substantive, from my perspective.
The only other question, and I don't want to muddy the water, is there any problem with the state, either, whether it's a state highway, in terms of getting an egress on there, that's not a
There already
problem
is
with
one.
them?
Yeah, it's,
The existing entrance to the liquor store is actually on our property.
Mhm.
And that entrance is going to be used that's the entrance being used, so
I
there's,
see.
there's no
Okay,
additional,
I'm with you. There's
state-
no additional
no.
Right.
egress, it's a
Nope.
matter of you getting
Yep,
approval for whoever
mostly
owns
on
the
the east
village
side.
can use that egress, right?
No, this is on the east side where we're coming off North End Road.
Yeah,
We've already got an alley
Oh,
back
oh.
there, and there's an easement for sewer and water, and there's already
all
asphalt
right,
through most
okay,
of it.
okay.
The easements between ourselves
Yeah, all right,
has nothing, really no impact on the village.
okay, yeah.
Using the same.
Okay, sorry. Let's see. I want to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit application for Muds and Suds located at 726 6th Street North for applicant Mark Zappa, obviously Mark is no longer involved in the discussion of this, provided that all of the terms and conditions as provided for in the Plan Commission approval process are completed prior to construction.
Do you want that, or do you want the memorandum? Or, okay.
He's
If that-
saying it as
you
well.
have-
It just simply says we're going to approve it, subject to all the terms and conditions that the Plan Commission had specified prior, as long as they're all completed prior to actual start of construction.
Okay, I'll second it, but then I just have some questions.
Okay.
Question I have is like, the Plan Commission had 7 items, Cedar Corporation had 8 items, and then the issue statement had 10.
They tend to reproduce.
What's that? Okay, well, just don't want to miss any.
Okay, no, I see your point, Joe.
Fire department had 7.
You're saying that there were 7 conditions raised by the plan, 8 commissions, 8 issues identified by the Plan Commission. Other ones, are there other and separate ones, Kevin, identified by Cedar Corp?
You know, as part of the 10 conditions in there, our particular item was just, you know, as stated as one, which incorporates all of these particular items.
Okay.
Well, like, you may not have incorporated the fire department's
Right,
recommendation there. This issue statement would include that.
I don't have any pride of authorship in the motion now. If I look at the issue statement, it says, you know, I move approval of the conditional use permit application for Muds and Suds located 726 6th Street North for applicant Mark Zapper, provided all of the following terms and conditions are met.
Okay.
Numbers 1 through 10. That would then incorporate Plan Commission, Cedar Corp, and anything else anybody else is throwing on the table. Right? Excuse me. Is that,
Yes,
are you more comfortable with that language?
yes.
Or do we need anything more than that?
Can't go for a dozen conditions.
Pardon? No comments, no comments. You can't comment. You can't talk. Okay, then I will revise the motion to include this draft.
And I will second that motion.
All right, good catch, thank you, Joe. Probably a better motion. All right, continued comments or questions? Okay, conditional use permits, I think we usually vote those by roll call.
Roll call, did you say?
Okay, so, all in favor of the motion to approve this, signify by saying yes, otherwise state no. Colleen?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
Larry, yes. Okay. Motion approved, 6-0. Mark abstaining for obvious reasons.
I didn't hear that.
We ruled him out of order.
Oh, you did? What else is new? He's always out of order.
We need to rule it in order.
Give him a break, you know.
Okay,
Finance Committee. Claims approval request.
I didn't take one.
The Finance Committee is recommending approval of the July claims. Good night, Darrell. Thank you. The specific motion was to approve the July non-recurring claims totaling $97,999.45. Total claims submitted for approval are $97,999.45. Chair would entertain a second to that motion.
Second.
All right, discussion? Okay, no questions? All right, then we'll do a roll call.
No.
All in favor of paying our bills? Colleen?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Just, yes. And Larry, yes, 7-0. Okay. It's unanimous, 7-0 on roll call vote.
Didn't make it unanimous, was it?
That's almost unanimous. Okay. Village Hall office hours change. The Finance Committee is recommending that the Village Hall office hours be changed from 8 to 5 to 8 to 4:30. Primary reasons are, there's twofold. One is to make make the starting and quitting times for the departments a little bit more consistent. Not going to be identical, but more consistent. More importantly, to eliminate a scheduling problem over the lunch hour. Secondly, in terms of, where would you if you want to take out a half an hour, where would you take it out? And the answer is at the end of the shift, so to speak, rather than either in the middle of the day or at the start of the day. Okay. So it is the recommendation of the Finance Committee to change the office hours from, and this is a motion, by the way, to change the office hours from 8 to 5 to 8 to 4:30, effective August 14th, which is 2 weeks from today. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Mark has a second, all right. I want to be done making motions here. All right, just other comments, questions? Nope. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, Public Works?
Let's see, I think the two items that I wanted to cover are really, let's see, I better look at this again. Because I do think we have an issue statement, do we not?
Yes, you do.
Essentially, the Cradley Lane Sewer and Water Extension Project is complete, and I'd like, well, Kevin, could you just let us know what's transpired in the last couple of weeks? I think we're pretty much done.
Yeah, actually, today, if you remember last month, really the only thing that was left out there was the lift station. The control panel needed to be set and it needed a schedule to start up. That transpired today at 2 o'clock with the general contractor, the electrician, Mark Ekblad and his individual personnel. And just to go over all the controls and get Mark familiar with the dialer in there and the pumps and all those items as part of that lift station. And everything passed. The only thing that really sits out there now is got to finalize the pay app. And then once we have all the final numbers, then we will generate the final special assessment report and be bringing that back to the board to have it adopted. So that's, in a nutshell, we're pretty much completed with the project.
In terms of operating the pump system, do we have an operator's manual or anything like that
Yes.
we've got to refer to
Yep.
in case we forget or somebody new comes in, whatever it is?
Yeah, the pump supplier and the electrical control panel representative, they actually have a maintenance
Okay.
manual that's given to Mark, and that transpired today, so that he can get himself familiar with
Okay.
all the operations of that particular station.
But it's relative, I guess the thing is, it's automatic.
A lot of it is.
It runs pretty much automatic, we just need to check it periodically, and if that pump fails, do we not get we get a signal someplace, or?
There's actually a telephone line that's hooked up into the
Yeah.
control panel, and there's a dialer. If there's a pump failure, it actually dials, goes through a listing of numbers that's programmed into that, and Mark Ekblad would be the first one. If it doesn't answer, then another individual would be dialed. So.
Thank you. Non-listed, I think. But, okay, and the second thing is there's some restoration, I would guess, that is in need out there. places where the digging has gone on. Has that been?
Yes.
Does
Yep.
that still need to be done, or has that been completed?
Everything's been, they brought in topsoil, did seed and mulch it, so,
They did?
yes.
Oh, okay, so it has been done.
I'm sorry, AT&T did call and say that they would be within the week covering. There was some lines still open or
Okay.
uncovered, but they would be covering them within the week.
That's something that they would
The-
take care of it.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yes, I mean, the construction end is
Yeah,
it's
yeah. And
completed at this
yeah, we
stage.
have a proposed motion to, because the MinCom has requested a payment. And I think besides, if there's still some money left, the final payment you guys will generate here probably
Next.
for the board to approve next month, my
Yep.
guess is, right?
And typically, we usually do hold somewhat of a retainer
Yeah,
for 3 to 6 months, just because a restoration is probably the biggest one, especially as dry as it's been. Just so you do have some dollars that are sitting there if you do
Yeah.
have to hire somebody to come in
okay,
and fix those areas.
okay.
But
Okay, well, you can stay there because you'll be up next when we talk about the next issue. But what I would like to recommend to the board is that we approve payment request from MinCom Utility Construction Company, Inc. for $48,801.
I think that was in
0.08.
97,000 we already approved.
What's that?
When we approved the claims before? The
Was this
MinCom-
already in there?
Yeah, there's
The
no,
MinCom claims dollar amount was in there.
Oh, okay.
if I don't include them with this month's claim, it'll be next month
Oh,
before they're included.
okay, so we've already done that.
It happens, yeah, it always comes
So
before a
I
public
should have
works.
made the meeting on time.
Fact, it was paid on July 18th.
Okay.
It was paid?
That's okay.
No,
No.
it's not paid yet.
Was it?
Why is it
Okay.
on time?
I'm sure it was.
That's what we're asking for you guys to approve to pay,
So that's when the bill came in, right?
right?
On that date that's on there now.
Public Works said.
Okay, my question on this, the 48,801 was included in, that was the number that we already approved. Now, how much of that do you recommend be held back then for
None
that?
of it. There's more.
None of it?
There's more.
Oh, there will be
in the
more.
Budget
We-
that's
Okay.
left over that we haven't
All right.
got a request for yet.
typically, we
We'll
hold
get
like
another
a,
request next month, and we'll probably even have a retainer on top of that in case we have problems.
Okay,
So we haven't spent all the money, and this is just for portion, right?
yeah, we usually hold like a 5% retainer on all the pay apps. And then as you get closer towards the end of the project, then that 5% will, work its way down to like 2 or 1%.
So how many payments do we have left?
I would say you'll have one next month, which would be a final quantity, and there will be somewhat of a retainer that sits there,
Okay,
maybe $2,000-3,000,
so just,
and then there'll be just one additional one after that.
Have
so
we-
that whole project will be done. And
Yeah.
then MinCom will be out of here.
I'm sorry, say that again?
That project will be done and MinCom will be out of here. When?
Yeah, well, I think they pretty
End of the
much
week?
are out here. right?
Yeah, they're pretty much, the only thing that sits out there is a couple of punch list items, and they're looking at addressing those
Well,
next
they
week.
haven't- They haven't fixed
The road? What?
the logs on the road?
Yeah,
That's
that's
another
a
issue.
separate,
That's a
Yeah, but they're gonna
separate-
do that before they leave, right?
I
That was the
think,
whole premise.
yeah, I think Mark Ekblad was,
I mean, I know they got called away for an emergency
Right,
somewhere else, I understand
yeah.
that.
And I don't know where they are on that one, because they got called away in an emergency, so they're supposed to come back.
Yeah, my understanding was they were gonna be back this week or the worst case next, and then
Okay.
that would be it.
yeah,
I don't know.
I just happened to run into Mark.
I haven't been out there, yeah.
there's a big backhoe that still sits up by the lift station,
Yeah.
if that's what
So
their
we'll be
intention
getting a
is.
separate bill for that activity?
Yes,
Yep.
yep, that'd be run through Mark.
And have we paid engineering on this one?
Yeah, you've paid everything up to date.
Okay.
Yep. There
So
will
we
be
should be
no
getting
additional.
one more bill next month, and then remaining bill perhaps a month or two after that to close it out.
Yeah,
And then
well,
we won't have to talk about it again.
What are we looking at as far as special assessments and getting that on the books? Are we looking at, by the time everything is completed, the
Yeah.
final, are we looking at 06?
yes,
Or 07?
no, 06. You'll be able to get them on your tax statements for this year.
Okay.
Yep.
I just kind of timing.
I would think you would be looking at adopting that probably in October.
If I was one of the property owners who would be getting my assessment.
Yes.
Is the amount going to be pretty consistent, if not dead on with what I was originally told?
It's actually going to be a little bit less.
I can live with that.
Yep.
Okay.
Just because it looks like it's coming out almost pretty close to what the actual bid
Okay.
was. Maybe slightly over, but not by much.
We have a 10% contingency.
Yes, we did. Yep,
Oh, I
after
see.
the last
I
one we
see
had
what you
done,
mean.
just in case. So we didn't have to go through that public
Okay.
hearing period again.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so I don't have a motion.
Nope.
So the next item that I'd like to not have a motion on is to talk about Station Lane, Station Circle, and Summers Landing. The road out there has been, it's probably the poorest in North Hudson. We've had some problems even plowing snow this last year where we've ripped up the road and actually torn up some of the mechanisms on our plows, and it needs to be, actually, we need to repair it this year so we can plow on it this next winter. But we definitely need to essentially grind up the top surface of that road, perhaps put down another base course of material and then recoat it. That is what Cedar is recommending, and I'll leave it up to you to maybe talk a little bit about that if you would.
yeah, the big question for that particular area is how much base course is underneath the existing surface out there. Based on having some discussions with Mark Ekblad, we feel it's probably not sufficient enough just to go in there and try to
Be everywhere?
Yeah, based on what we're seeing out in the field with how it's breaking up.
Yeah, the base course isn't necessarily the asphalt, right? Or is it?
It's basically like your gravel
Yeah,
base course.
yeah.
And typically, as part of your street reconstruction projects, we've been doing 6 or 8 inches of base course underneath a 3-inch asphalt surface on
You
top.
got some ideas to how much is in there?
To be real accurate, we'd have to go out there and do some
Samples.
test holes, samples. What we had figured for is, bringing in a pulverizing machine and basically pulverize the existing asphalt and whatever base course is underneath, and then add to it. Add 3 or 4 inches of more base, aggregate base, gravel, and then lay the 3-inch asphalt on top of that. Again, you're gonna have to do some tie-ins to some of the driveways out there, and then look at doing some shouldering work, just so you have like a 1 or 2 foot gravel shoulder along that new surface, 3-inch mat that would be put down. So.
There are some areas, a lot of the road is not too bad. There's other chunks, other sections that are just horrible.
Right.
And we got kind of one slot that's sunk,
In those particular areas, depending on what you would find out there, sometimes on some of our projects, we have to do EBS, excavation below subgrade. We actually go in and you cut 1 or 2 feet of material out of those, if you really have some really soft areas, and then maybe bring some, sand to in place of that, just so you get some structural stability to it.
Is there any question in your mind this work needs to be done?
What's that?
Is there any question in your mind, just as the village engineer, that this work needs to be done?
Based on, if you look at your PACER rating, that is one of the lowest rating within the whole village.
Is there what would be worse?
It's starting to alligator cracks. The surface is starting to break up. If you were gonna try to go in there and do some crack sealing, that's at that, the stage that it's at now, you'd be just throwing dollars away. It needs a total rebuild.
Do you have an estimate of what the cost would be?
Well, we did look at that, I'd say.
Or put it into a range.
Yeah, about 6 or 8 months, but so I'll let you know, with the fuel prices, the paving has been going up substantially, 25 to 30%. And I ran some numbers tonight, and to do the whole, there's like a little over a mile of street there, about $250,000. With adding, doing the pulverizing, adding the base course, and doing the tie-ins to the driveways.
Is that a contingency in case you have to dig out with that?
We put about a 10% contingency on there, yes.
We should probably do a little sample out there just to find out what we do have for base course though, so that we can.
Yes.
We can do a better job of estimating. I wonder if we could do that before our next public works meeting and because we need to put this on referendum, and we need to make sure that when we put it on referendum, that we don't go over that dollar amount.
Yeah, it would
So
just-
the more precise that we can get in terms of those dollars, and unfortunately, we're estimating now for a bid that we would be trying to get back in 6 months,
Right.
and who knows what's gonna happen.
With the fuel, that's going to be the
So
biggest
all of those things,
price.
as precise as we can, with a little bit of contingency planning is what we need to have, I think, for the next board meeting, so we can put it on the referendum correctly.
Just as information too, 50% of this is accessible.
Have you been doing a lot of bidding for asphalt work? Just real late?
Yeah, we usually bid stuff every month, especially this time of the year.
Has the pricing kind of reached its peak, or is it continuing to just escalate?
Well, it's still going up. I mean, to what it's going to be next spring is, anybody's guess. It's, from what I estimated 6 or 8 months ago, I'm looking at about $30,000 to $40,000 more, just in the asphalt cost, because it is a pretty substantial, almost a mile road with 20.
No, I'm not surprised, I know in discussing.
Yeah.
What are you saying, is there a need to do it now rather than wait?
Oh, no, I'm not.
We just wonder if it's gonna escalate.
I was just.
What the trend is gonna be.
Well, if we all knew what gas would be
Yeah.
6 months
We'd get on the
from now,
futures market.
Yeah. That's anybody's guess.
Okay.
We'll try to be as precise as we can with a contingency factor, but chances are it's gonna go up.
Okay.
Unfortunately. But it's another reason why we need to, in Public Works, we need to make sure that we do a good job of maintaining the streets that we have. Seal
Absolutely.
coat them, crack fill them, and I think we're doing a better job in 2006 than we did in 2005 and 4 and previously, but it's one thing that we are considering. And we just, these streets, if you maintain them right, particularly with seal coating and the rest of it, can last a long, long, long time. And that road out there is 25 years old, at least. So maybe we've got as much as we could hope for out of that road, I don't know. But I think it would have lasted a little bit longer if it would have been seal coated the last 10 years or so.
When we talk about seal coating, are we talking about what we did to Riverside Drive and Wisconsin and Galahad?
Yep.
If I can ask, take advantage of your presence here, and how much, number one, how much longer do those stones stay on there before they're removed?
I would say typically, depending on how much traffic, usually about a month and a half.
Okay.
Is actually, then you would start looking at bringing a street sweeper to
Sure.
come in and actually, sweep off the excess
All right.
on top.
Now, I noticed on Riverside Drive specifically, and it may be on a couple of the other roads, I hadn't noticed it, but a washboarding effect. Does that get smoothed out, rolled, or?
I think a lot of it's probably that loose material that you're feeling, and once you bring that street sweeper in there to actually lift that material up, I think then it's going to alleviate that issue.
And if it's not, do we bring in a big roller and flatten it out?
That you would probably have to go back to the original contractor that installed that just to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Shouldn't have to.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Okay. Ready to move on?
That concludes Public Works.
Okay. Public safety?
Well, the chief was here until moments ago.
He'll be with
And hope he comes back. Public safety has been quite busy. You'll notice at the very first page of the public safety section that we did have a special meeting on the 27th. And if it's all right, Larry, I'd like to just change the agenda sequence around just a little bit.
It's fine.
Not sure, I think I hear the chief coming up, and I wouldn't, there he is, okay.
Go ahead, whatever order you want to take them in.
Okay, chief, we're going to begin with the item that we discussed on July 27th. And there's quite a bit of detail in your packet regarding
the restructuring of the current positions of the clerk of the court and the police department office manager. The office manager will become a full-time 40-hour position, and a different person would become the clerk of the court for, dare I say the number, 19, average of 19 hours per week.
Average of not more than.
Not more than 19 hours per week. We had some discussion at the Finance Committee regarding that. And so I just want to point you to a couple of the documents that relate to this issue. And if you flip through the public safety section, you'll notice an issue statement shortly after the chiefs, or the meeting minutes from July 13th. And there is quite a bit of background. But I'll ask Mark, since he's standing at the microphone, to give us a capsule rundown on why this needs to be done.
Well, I'd be interested to hear from you, George, real quick. I was not here for finance based on the National Night Out. What type of changes were at least proposed there?
The only proposed change was to keep it to not an average of not more than 19 hours per week.
For the clerk of court.
Okay, so the police department office manager, there was not any changes or structural changes to that.
Right.
Basically what's happened, and I'll publicly thank Dar Paquin for being the office manager / clerk of court for the past at least 2+ years. She's done a great job and has decided to move up north with her family and to enjoy the waters and the fishing and whatnot up there. And to that, I can't fault her. I know
Are
that
we all
she's
invited?
I'm sorry?
Are we all invited?
I believe that, yeah, that wouldn't be, give her a few weeks, but I think that would be not a problem. So I thank her for all the work that she's done for us. She's done this Friday as of 4:30, and we will be then short any office staff at the police department. We have, with the graces that behold the police department, gotten Susan Gornick to come back and assist in that interim on a relatively part-time basis, as many hours as she can assist with, and also to train both positions, if they are approved, the office manager as well as the clerk of court, based on the fact that she did both jobs as one person. One of the reasons that Judge Wopat and I, and he's not here tonight, I thought he was going to speak to this, but I'll speak on both of our behalfs. One of the reasons that we are looking at trying to switch this position out from a unified police office manager and clerk of court, there's several reasons. One being that if there's an issue in that position, there are basically two supervisors or two bosses for that one position. If there's disciplinary issues, if there are any other employee type issues, basically we have to confer between the two of us, and it's difficult if he's happy with the person's progress and maybe the police department isn't, or vice versa. It creates some conflict. The other conflict that the judge brought up was that in recent court I guess journals, there's been a lot of discussion about the fact of having a police department office manager and a clerk of court be one person, that there's a bit of conflict of interest there. You've got, it's a marrying of the two positions that technically should be completely separate. There should be no, other than the passing of the torch of a citation from PD to court, there really should not be a lot more conversation between the two, just so that everything's on a fair scale. I'm not saying that in the past it's not been fair. I'm just saying in order to clarify that and to clear some things up, I think that could be a good change. The timeliness of this, obviously with the fact that we have not been able to retain admin assistant for very long due to various reasons, and also now that this person is leaving, we don't have a person that we need to try to adjust into a new position. We have now created basically two separate entities that we can go out and advertise for, and I think we're going to have better results in trying to keep people for a longer period of time because they have a distinct job they're going to do Monday through Friday, or in the fact of the court, you know, Tuesday through Thursday, or depending on when the hours come in, that there's not going to be a division of work. And that, in asking Dar some of the reasons why she would support this, that was her idea, is that there is so much work that happens between the two sides that it's very difficult to time manage both of those, because there's not really a distinction of I'm doing PD work now and court work now. It literally could be moment to moment that she was switching back and forth. The other thing, and you'll notice my budgetary layout, it looks like financially it would be a good option for us. Now it sounds like with the no more than 19 hours a week option to keep some of the benefits packages lower. I think we're going to come out, and I don't know if you guys have done the numbers, but when I did the numbers, we were going to be slightly up for 2007, but that included benefits. I'm assuming with the new numbers, it would probably be very close or even under budget for
What we concluded was
2007.
we wanted to be revenue neutral for
Okay.
2000, for the balance of 2006.
Yep.
2000, if after controlling the 19 hours, not more than 19 hours, if we find that that's a problem going forward, we can always deal with that within the budget process. But we're not going to add to the fixed cost of operations.
And I
Because we didn't
think,
have any data to support adding that many more hours.
right, and I think that going forward from now until January 1, 2007, I think that will be just fine as far as the current budget cycle goes.
Okay.
Are there any questions about that?
So in effect, we're splitting the responsibilities in two distinct positions. They'll each have their own separate titles. The compensation, salary cost will be the same for both. Benefit costs will be the same as currently budgeted as well.
Correct.
That is not to say, however, that the two salaries will be the same on a per-hour basis for these
No, I
two
mean, they have,
positions.
no, they have,
Right.
you're right.
That'll be determined based on,
Well, we have a budget.
yeah.
Okay.
Larry had made the motion during finance, and I'll ask him to read that motion
Okay.
again.
And I said I wasn't going to make any more motions tonight. I move to restructure the current clerk of court and PD office manager position into two separate full-time positions, specifically the PD office manager will be a full-time position, i.e. 40 hours a week, and the clerk of municipal court will be a part-time position with hours not exceeding 19 hours per week. And let's see, this change will be effective immediately, and both positions will continue to be paid in the $14 to $16 per hour range.
The only, before that's seconded, the very beginning of that, there not being two full-time positions, there being two separate positions.
What did I say? Did I say two full-time?
Yes.
Okay, didn't mean that. Fix
Okay.
that. Yeah, okay.
I'll second that.
All right. Do we have any questions as what we're doing? This is something which I thought for a long time we should be doing. PD admin assistant and the municipal clerk of court should be two separate jobs, because they are. I realize they have a lot of interaction, but they should be two separate roles. And the supervisory issue that Mark talked about can get to be a very real problem. And more importantly, getting there doesn't cost anything. Okay. All right, so we have motion on the floor. Second, are there any more questions? Okay, this is not a spending decision, it's just an administrative one, so we can just do a regular vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I'd like to incorporate the chair update and the village edition items A and B into one, because they're covered in the meeting minutes. As you'll notice on the second page, just above Village Hall Edition and the report that we have there, Larry, our president, did give an excellent presentation on the wildlife management issue at our our July 13th meeting. We'll be coming back to you later on with some more information as that information becomes available regarding costs and our approach to this. Mark, did you have anything to add to that piece? Okay. The Village Hall Edition, I really don't have too much to add. You see the notes that we have in the minutes. We did have Todd come in. He stated that he has met with the village administrator, Gloria, and he met with Mark, Chief Richard, and also with the Public Works Supervisor, and we're working on modifications to the plans. We tried to make sure it was clear that the thrust of or the most important part to us was to come up with a very accurate, or as accurate as humanly possible, estimate on the cost of the additions, so that we would be able to go before the public with a realistic referendum amount. It is our belief that as we develop as we come up with those numbers, changing or moving walls around within that 3,000 square foot area will not have a significant impact or any impact whatsoever on the actual cost. Because my colleague Mark here has been very active in this, I'll ask him, do you have anything to add to that, Mark?
I don't know whether getting this referendum timing thing down. I'm not sure if we're.
I did ask Tom to be prepared to comment when we came to that section regarding the referendum and the timing.
Okay. So this is that time.
Jump.
Jump right in, Tom.
Jump right in. Well, looking at this, my understanding is we do this at the November election, correct?
That's our intention.
So we have to back up from that, and the first publication goes back for the fourth Tuesday before that, which I think puts us at October 7th. And
What has to happen then?
The first there's a series of publication notices that go out for any election, and the first one, I believe, would be on October 7th. And you count that the same way, Gloria? And so I guess when I kept looking up here at the calendar earlier tonight, and so if that's the first the last possible time we could do any changes to wording and that type of thing would be at the October board meeting, which I would believe would be on the 3rd. And so looking at things, my sense was that, August and September, you've got to, at the public safety committee meetings, get what you need as far as language and, the scope of the project and what's going to happen. It would be nice to have things for your September board meeting, and then have the October board meeting be a backup if for whatever reason something needs to get changed in that time frame. But so even though November 7th seems a long time away, I think that things are, when you back it up a month in front of that for publications, that's going to make things happen
I
fairly
think
soon.
September is the good date. Did you speak with Cindy regarding getting this stuff onto the ballots and her order time? I question that too.
Okay.
Is the reason September would be optimal?
Yes.
We did impress on Todd, I think, quite emphatically the importance of timeliness and how he could notify you to call a public safety meeting at any time, recognizing the requirement, the 24 hours.
I did have a message from Todd also, and I
Okay,
just
good.
didn't return that until kind of after tonight and kind of where we're at, because he was just basically looking for the time frame, and I didn't really, until we met here, I thought I'd just
Sure.
get back to him after that. So I'll talk to him in the
So
morning.
when did he call? Was it a few weeks ago?
It was last week sometime, and I was out the last 2 days, so
Okay.
it was last week,
All right.
Thursday, I think.
I just don't want him to come back and say, well, I called the attorney and he
No.
didn't return my call, so. All right.
So backtracking again, how far back do we have to go to get the first announcement in the paper?
Well, the first publication with respect to the referendum would be in the week of October 7th. But,
It's approximately a month in front of.
right, it has to be the fourth Tuesday before the election.
Okay.
The
So we're gonna
election-
have, but at least looks like we'll have at least 2 notices in the paper.
There's actually
One for
even
road
one.
construction, one for
Oh,
potentially
okay,
building.
yeah, right. As it turns out, there's 5 Tuesdays in October, so that works out that way.
Will we need to pass any motions here at the board to proceed? I mean, we've kind of collectively gone along with saying, yeah, we want to do this.
I think at a board meeting, we ought to pass a motion that says what the question is that's going to appear on the ballot,
Okay.
and have that in the minutes, and
But we don't have that writing yet.
That's correct.
Okay, and that would be.
And my sense,
September.
yeah, my thought was that perhaps I ought to come to the next public safety meeting, not so much input for all the planning stuff that's going on, but just to have some discussion about language and that type of thing. And because I haven't been participating in that process, but it seems to me that we can come up with that language, and I want to have input from you folks as to how that.
Well, I was kind of thinking, Tom, that it might be appropriate for you to do the bulk of the wording of
Right,
this.
and I'd have a draft of that, but, you know.
We'll put the number in.
Right.
And you come up with the
No,
terminology.
That's fine, but I want to run that before the committee, before we show up at a board meeting and say, this is what we'd like.
Yep. And our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, August 10th.
Right, I have that down.
Okay. Anything else? Any questions from the board? Anybody else have any questions regarding the addition? All right, and finally, this is...
I just had one. You haven't gotten any indications that the dollar amount is, have you gotten any, I think we were using kind of like a cost per square foot. Cost has been kind of like our estimate so far. Is anything giving any cause to think that number has changed?
I seem to remember Todd using a number that was maybe a little more than the 450 that we had planned on, somewhere in the neighborhood of around 500. There's more than just the addition. There's the infrastructure here.
Oh, yeah,
There's
right.
this existing plant. And when we talk about a few other things that we feel definitely need attention on this floor alone, some of those things will impact the cost.
Yep, no, I understand.
And one of the things that we are looking at, of course, is the heating and cooling plant, which is going to have to be different because of the additional 300 or 3,000 square feet, so.
What is it gonna be? I can tell you,
It always-
cost today on a different building. Things are going up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's,
All right. I'll leave it to you folks to read the rest of the police report. There's a lot of good, valuable information in there. And now I get to the what may be one of those areas that could be the most controversial of the evening. And that has to do with the road closure. And that's for the Pepperfest Kids Parade. And you'll notice it has on the agenda here discussion and possible action. Closing down a portion of Lemon Street and Webster. And Chief, do you want to talk to this? There's an issue statement here. We've done this before. Its new name is the Pepperfest Kid, Doll, and Pet Parade. Are you okay with this, with these street closures for these kids?
You seem to be working it up quite generously, but name has not changed. Name has always, or has been that. This is the second annual. They did notice some safety issues last year when they did just Webster Street between Lemon and Cedar because of some parking and the kids in the area. And so as a matter of safety, what they're asking now is just to close down for a period of approximately 60 minutes, Lemon Street between Monroe and Webster, and then that portion of Webster that was closed last year. It's about 60 minutes. It's actually prior to kind of the main activity of Pepperfest. I believe Pepperfest opens either 4 or 5 o'clock typically on that Friday, and so it'll all be over before the influx of vehicles and whatnot. Again, we passed Webster last year, and they're just asking for a little bit more road space to make the travels of the kids on the little parade floats, I guess if you will, that they're using a little bit easier and more safe for those kids that are participating. And they expect to have a good amount of floats this year, and I know that they're talking about even capping it because they don't want to get too big. And obviously it's not to take away from Pepperfest, it's just to give a little added activity for the kids that don't necessarily have all the atmosphere down here that they maybe would want.
Sure.
But thank you, George, for the build-up on that.
okay. Is there a motion on the
And that's
floor?
what it was for. I wanted to bring some attention to this. John, I hope you got that.
He's in it.
Is he the pet or the?
Do we have a motion?
The motion to authorize restriction of traffic on Lemon Street north from Monroe Street north to Webster Street north and on Webster Street North from Lemon Street North to Cedar Drive North for the Pepperfest Kid, Doll, and Pet Parade on August 18th, 2006, from 3:30 PM to 4:30 PM.
Second.
Comments, questions? Okay, none? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Mark. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Public welfare, how's our welfare?
Nothing really new to report. We had an interesting informative meeting with the county recycling, what is she, representative of the county recycling program, to talk about the grants that we have gotten in the past that we can get for leaf and pine needle pickup this fall, and we're still discussing our options. Also had a representative of Waste Management.
Okay. Very good. Park Board?
The main thing that we were.
I'm sorry, were you done, Sandra?
I'm done.
Okay.
We're done now.
Can't go back?
One of the things that we've been discussing and have brought before the Public Safety Committee is the possibility of no trailer parking signs on Galahad Road, Galahad Place, and designating trailer parking in Ferry Landing Park, and limiting the size of boats that can be launched there, since it is a safety issue, and there's been apparently some people who are taking boats that are not appropriate for that boat launch, and discussing possible fees. The Public Safety Committee requested that we come up with a more formal recommendation, which we will be working at our next park board meeting.
It's just something that occurred to me a couple of weeks ago. I just happened to be over in St. Paul because one of my relatives lives over there. And around Lake Josephine, which is a lake about the size of Malibu, the way that they deal with it is they have built a parking lot that will accommodate approximately, I'll say, 7 vehicle, boat trailer parking areas. When those 7 are full, that thereby declares the lake at capacity, and there's no more parking anywhere near there. So that's how they deal with it. And then there is a charge for them.
Isn't that kind of difficult to do when you're talking about a river?
Well, I don't know, well, no.
You can't say the river's full.
Well, we can't put the river at capacity. I suppose we could extend our jurisdiction a little bit if we'd like.
Good luck.
But in terms of saying, this is it for parking, when these 7 are locked, that's, we hereby declare our parking capacity at its limit, and, well, by the way, it's $100, so. Just kidding.
So that's most of what we've been working on.
Okay.
The rest is in the minutes.
Okay, new business?
Were you asking for any action on that?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
President doesn't have anything? Anything else?
Again, I expressed it during the public, or the finance meeting. The committee should get working on their budgets and bringing them forward, because if we are short on funds and need to go to referendum, we would also need to include that with this group. Hopefully not, but better safe than sorry.
Let's keep in mind, we do need to have some just, very broad guidelines from you that says, given the current state statute, here's what our state required budget would have to be. To the extent that the referendum doesn't fly, we've got to have Plan B ready to go and in place. Okay.
Right, yes.
Okay.
And I'd have to do that to...
Yeah, assuming we had a referendum. We haven't got there yet, but just assuming that you were going to have one, you've also got to have Plan B.
Well, you'd have to have Plan B before you could decide whether you needed the referendum.
It's true.
I'll do that.
Can you talk about this proposed ordinance? I mean, that you've included in the book?
Well,
yes.
that was given to us by our building inspector, and I personally, when I looked at our ordinance and realized there was no requirement for fences to be around swimming pools, I was quite surprised. But this is some of what it would incorporate. But I just put that in front of you so you get a chance to look at it, because he's asking it to go on, and next time you see it, it'll probably have a number on it and be an ask for approval. This way you got time to ask questions and,
Okay.
and decide what you want to do with it.
Good, thank you. All right, if there's any other comments or new business, if not,
I just want to clarify,
Yes, you do.
public welfare, sorry. Public welfare meeting, we kind of changed it a few times. 22nd, 24th, 29th is the,
You're okay with
is
the
that
29th?
with, good with everybody?
Yeah.
That's- Okay,
at the same time?
29th, yeah.
No, at the same time,
Sorry, yep.
which is
6:30.
6:30.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, then I would make a motion that we convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.851G to discuss pending litigation, and pursuant to 19.851B to discuss employee performance-related matters. Is there a second?
I'll second it with the proviso that there be a 5-minute recess.
Oh, so granted, sir. We are in closed session. It is now 9.